Evergreen Mills is a dilapidated factory in the southwest ruins of DC. While it's the largest raider stronghold in the Capital Wasteland, it seems that Bethesda's developers once had much grander plans. This is the mystery of Evergreen Mills. Inside Evergreen Mills Bazaar, there's a raider who has a generic name in-game, but internally she's called Madame. The official guide mentions that Madame runs the brothel inside the Evergreen Mills Bazaar, offering her girls services in exchange for caps or chems. She doesn't need ammunition because her friend Smiling Jack provides offensive help if a customer gets too rowdy. Madame is particularly proud of her interior decorating skills. She's then mentioned once again in the guide during Sam Warwick's biography. A friendly rival of Laszlo Redford's, Sam is a keen shot and a lone raider, ready to tag defenseless creatures and wandering mutations. But his big plan is a high-value target he can drop from safe distance and accrue enough caps to visit Madame over at Evergreen Mills. It's genuinely strange for a character who isn't even named in-game to have two separate entries about her in the guide. Further, several of the generically named raiders near her are internally named Whore Brothel, which is a weird thing to include considering none of this is clearly communicated to the player. Directly behind Madame is a door blocked by rubble. By clipping through it, we can see there's an entire out-of-bounds room here that was partially set up. Someone placed a desk and various props here, including a combat knife, cigarettes, and a glass, implying the player could once travel here. It's bizarre that the area designer who made this room blocked it off, but didn't delete this table setup. It's unknown what's going on here, but perhaps Madame once had an actual purpose, rather than simply being a common raider. There are also two very interesting creatures placed out of bounds in the Bazaar interior, named Giant Ant Gladiator and Super Mutant Gladiator. Both of these are permanently disabled, but their gladiator names suggest they would have fought each other in combat, potentially in some kind of arena. Nearby, there's also two X markers called Ant Entrance and Super Mutant Entrance. Directly beside those markers, there's yet another cut X marker called Patron Wander, which is linked to an unused AI package, suggesting that raiders would have wandered around the area where these creatures fought, spectating their matches. This would tie in well when you consider that one of the location's main set pieces is a caged super mutant behemoth. Perhaps the original implication was that the creature was captured to fight in this cut arena as well. It's possible the Lone Wanderer could have even fought in this arena, akin to the Thorn in New Vegas. This entire idea is similar to the combat zone in Fallout 4, and I can't help but wonder if this cut idea was later recycled. Many other elements of Fallout 3 ended up finally appearing in 4, so it's definitely plausible. Though ironically, being able to fight in matches in the combat zone was eventually cut as well. It seems that Evergreen Mills was intended to be a settlement for evil players, similar to Paradise Falls, as there's an unused faction internally called Raider Friend Faction. The name of the faction is used for very evil players, and it makes Raider factions friendly to the player. The official guide even mentions that a ramification of having neutral or good karma is that raiders will always attack you. This alone implies that having very evil karma would have allowed access to Evergreen Mills, allowing the protagonist to buy and sell items, visit the brothel, and potentially even watch or fight in gladiatorial battles involving mutated creatures. A town for evil players would have given more weight to the game's karma system and could have been a great inclusion.
Shh, not too loud. I don't really want people to know that we're doing business. The rest of these guys around here might not want anything to do with you, but I got no problem with you. Well, not with your caps at least.
There's a merchant here named Smiling Jack, and his name is an homage to a character of the same name in the classic RPG Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which was worked on by several of Fallout 1 and 2's developers, including Tim Kaine. Despite killing all of his friends, Smiling Jack is strangely non-hostile and will trade with you. I suspect he's the last endgame remnant of the player being friendly with the raiders here, but that's simply speculation. There's 3 cut terminals meant for the location, but unfortunately these notes were never implemented or deleted. Intriguingly, there's also an unused terminal named Evergreen Secret Terminal. After choosing the menu option, "It's a secret to everyone," a note in the results script box reveals that the terminal would have rotated and revealed a secret door. What this door would have led to is a complete mystery though. There are 3 very interesting raiders found outside Evergreen Mill's exterior. Despite being called Raider in-game, they're internally named Raider Boss. Each one of them has a unique model that isn't used anywhere else, and higher stats than the other raiders found here. One of them even has neutral karma, though this might have been an oversight. There's also a cut sniper raider who has neutral karma too, and he would have appeared in the Wasteland as well. It's unclear if he was cut for the sake of performance or to make the area less difficult. In a previous video, I mentioned that Herald side quest Oasis took the place of an unknown cut side quest, and perhaps it was somehow related to Evergreen Mills. Unfortunately, all traces of the original MS-10 side quest were deleted, so we'll likely never know for sure, but it's interesting to consider a raider side quest specifically for evil players. This theory is seemingly confirmed by a map made very early in development. In it, quest locations are marked by a beige color, and the raider stronghold is notably tinted this way as well. Regardless, Evergreen Mills clearly had more going on early in development and was intended to be a much more interesting area than what we ended up getting. These changes would have made Fallout 3 into an even better game. Ultimately though, all of this was left on the cutting room floor.
Good people of the Imperial City, welcome to the arena!
It's been over a decade since I played Oblivion in any meaningful fashion, but my memory of the arena stands out despite all the years that have passed. Fighting tooth and nail to become champion while being serenaded by the cheers of a bloodthirsty crowd was an unforgettable experience. Bethesda has been trying to recapture that magic ever since, designing and implementing gladiatorial arenas in their next 3 major releases, each of which would never see the light of day. This is Skyrim's Cut Arena. Skyrim's Cut Arena was going to be called the Pit, which would have been confusing considering the other pit. Rolf Stonefist still references the location name when the player turns down a fistfight, but since the area doesn't actually exist, the line is a strange leftover of cut content.
Pit bait.
The pit would have been found in Windhelm, not far from the Palace of the Kings. Off to the right of the palace, there's a corridor that serves no purpose beyond leading back down to the city. It seems this hallway and the structure that contains it were only placed here to hide the empty space where the pit was originally placed. If we no-clip through this wall, there's still an unused door hidden behind here that might have linked to the arena, though it might have been intended for something else entirely. Regardless, the cell all of this is contained in is still called Pit Exterior. The pit remains in an unused world space and is substantially smaller than the version found in Cyrodiil. The fighting area is lined with several cages that would have contained various creatures and enemy gladiators. One of the cages opens through the wall, another lacks a door, and there's very few props placed here. Some of the walls also have purple spots due to a missing snow texture, all of which suggest it was cut relatively early into the level design process. The area around the pit is populated by 12 NPCs of various races. They all use the Windhelm Pit Fan Cheer faction, which presumably should have made them cheer during fights, but it isn't actually set up to do anything. There's also an unused location reference called Wealthy Spectator Spot, suggesting the audience was planned to be divided by economic status. Perhaps the spectators' dialogue would have been unique for rich and poor citizens, but it might have only been represented by their clothing. Like Oblivion, Skyrim was going to feature an area called the Bloodworks that was found directly beneath the combat area, named because of the way blood seeped down into the location from the arena above. The cell actually appears in the final game and was simply renamed as the Windhelm Barracks, but its internal name is still Bloodworks. During the quest Blood on the Ice, several characters erroneously refer to it as its original name.
Make your excuses from the Bloodworks, wizard.
Oh, isn't that a shame? And here I am in the Bloodworks.
Obviously. You should visit the Bloodworks to talk to Woundfirth. We need to figure out where the evidence went wrong.
You should visit the Bloodworks to talk to Woundfirth. We need to figure out where the evidence went wrong.
Obviously. You should visit the Bloodworks to talk to Woundfirth. We need to figure out where the evidence went wrong.
There's also a door in the pit's combat area that's seemingly connected to the Bloodworks, but there's no obvious place for a corresponding door in the jail. The ground texture around the Bloodworks is larger than the room, and perhaps they cut it down in size when they removed the door. The location would have seen various NPCs training for their matches, and likely would have been where you set up your own fights. There are 3 unused unique pit fighters who likely would have appeared down here, the first of which is named Brond, and he has a handful of cut greetings.
I've been a lot of things in my life. Pit fighter's the one I'm best at. We should get a dragon for the pit. I'd love to fight one. I've been fighting in the pit for years. That should tell you something. There's 2 kinds of pit fighters. Good ones and dead ones. Ulfric once tried to get me to fight for him, but marching bores me. Steel, barehanded, armor, naked. It's all fighting. I can kill you with a weapon or by myself. No difference.
Brond's inventory contains a bow, 30 arrows, and most intriguingly, both a steel greatsword and a dragonplate shield. This is interesting because you can't wield a two-handed sword and shield simultaneously. Perhaps they considered allowing some characters to do both, or maybe his inventory just wasn't finalized yet. One of the factions he's a part of implies he would have been a drunk. Despite being cut, Torbjorn Shattershield still mentions him in dialogue.
Brond's one of the most savage fighters I've ever seen.
This implies that Torbjorn might have attended matches as a spectator as well. The next pit fighter was named Lysol, and she has unused greetings too.
Stand away from me, or I'll crack you like an egg. What are you looking at? Scared of strong women? You look mighty tasty. Better not stick around for supper.
It seems that Lysol was partially recycled for an NPC of the same name who's also from Windhelm in the Dragonborn DLC. A relationship makes her a foe of Brond, and she has an unused AI package that would make her sleep in the barracks. Both her and Brond share an otherwise unused AI package called Pit Fighter Stay in Bloodworks, which makes them a tag and deleted reference. It's possible they would have sparred against each other or combat dummies. The last cut fighter is Endorphin, and he has one remaining line.
What I lack in strength, I make up for with tenacity.
He has a bow, arrows, and an AI package that would make him attack something using his bow, suggesting he would have been attacking a training dummy. He also has an unused relationship that makes him a rival of Lysol. Interestingly, he would have been the only Bosmer in the entire city, and considering the location's xenophobia, he likely would have been discriminated against. All 3 cut characters are a part of the Windhelm Pit faction, and are the highest possible rank, Pit Lord. Opposed to being a contest the player voluntarily entered, fighting in the pit was initially going to be a punishment for breaking laws in the settlement. After being arrested and taken to prison, Code would have teleported an NPC named Huki Sevenswords nearby, who acted as both Windhelm's jailkeeper and the arena's pit matron. The latter title seems to be a reference to Isabel, the battle matron of Oblivion's arena. Huki has several unused greetings, and some of them imply she supported Ulfric and the Stormcloaks.
Looking for something? Real Nords like to prove their mettle in the pit. Just between you and me, I wouldn't mind if the Empire just up and left for good. I'd love to get one of those Imperial weasels under my boot.
Her surname is interesting and seems to be a reference to Henrik Sevenswords, a Nord combat trainer that appeared in the Elder Scrolls Blades. She's marked as being a friend to Brunwulf Freewinter, and perhaps they would have had conversations about the pit. If the player tried to lockpick the cell door after being arrested, an AI package would cause Huki to force greet you. If she's placed inside the cell, this part of the quest still functions, which is really cool.
Alright, meat. It's time for you to earn your freedom. We don't just let people rot in cells until they've served their time. Here, you fight. If you win, you go free. If you lose, well, you'll know the freedom of Sovngarde if you're lucky. Alright, head to the pit when you think you're ready. Gotta give the crowd a show. Luckily, there's no shortage of pit bait around here. Now get in there and earn your freedom.
Now the player would make their way to the arena and be matched up against an NPC named Fellow Prisoner. This unlucky opponent would have had an iron sword, iron shield, and a single lockpick. One of the related scripts mentions a loner sword and shield, revealing the player wouldn't have had their own gear during the fight. Like your fellow prisoner enemy, you would have been given an iron sword and shield too, but there's no reference to what kind of armor you would have worn. An AI package would make enemies stand still prior to the battle starting, which presumably would have been used while the announcer gave their introductions. An announcer is mentioned in code, but the dialogue is unfortunately missing. During the battle, you'd be unable to leave the arena, as there's still an unused message that would have warned the player, you cannot leave the pit during combat. After winning the initial match, it appears the player would be freed, and could return to fight in additional gladiatorial matches at their leisure. Notes suggest the player would have had to fight again when they broke the law, and it would have been a fun consequence to fight your way to freedom after getting caught. It's unknown if the severity of your crimes would have resulted in more difficult opponents. After the initial fight, there are 13 additional matches set up as individual quests, which would have become progressively more difficult. Only some fights would be available at first, but as you successfully completed more matches and unlocked new ranks, you'd be allowed to challenge more dangerous opponents. Each match is set up to pay 100 gold for a win, regardless of difficulty. A note suggests the player would have gotten more lucrative rewards as they advanced in rank, but it was cut before that could be added. While you were limited to using an iron sword and shield in the initial fight, it seems you could have used other weapons in future matches, particularly considering that 2 of the 3 cut pit fighters have bows in their inventory. You would have started out at the rank of pit meat, which would have given you 3 sets of opponents to choose from. These range from 7 skeevers released in 2 waves, 6 wolves spread across 3 waves, or a single giant frostbite spider. Enemy waves that were waiting to fight would have been contained in the cages that are placed around the arena, while larger creatures like the spider are set up to spawn outside the cages, likely because their models would have clipped through the small confinements. After winning 10 battles against these creatures, you'd gain the rank of Goon, and gain the option to fight a single pit fighter. There's still an unused NPC intended for this called Pit Fighter, who uses the generic bandit boss template as a base. You'd have to win 11 more fights to advance to the Ruffian rank, which would unlock fights against a bear, a saber cat, 4 Charuses in 3 waves, a troll, or 2 pit fighters. Fighting against multiple opponents would have been dangerous, as it's very easy to get cornered against the walls and trapped. After winning 12 fights, you'd rank up to Thrasher, which would have unlocked fights against a giant or against 2 pit fighters. Squaring up with the giant would have been an interesting challenge considering the size of the arena, which allows little opportunity for evading attacks. If you won 13 more fights, you'd gain the highest arena rank, Pit Lord, giving you the ability to fight against one Ice Wraith or 3 Pit Fighters released in 2 waves. As it's set up, the player would have to win 47 fights to become a Pit Lord, which is excessive to say the least. I'm guessing this would have been cut down significantly if it had actually been finished. The Imperial City Arena featured a Grand Champion that you fought at the end of the quest line, and perhaps Skyrim would have had something similar.
What I need is for Elaine Dufont to die. I want him hunted down and murdered like the dog he is.
During the Dark Brotherhood quest Morning Never Comes, the player is sent by Mori to kill Elaine Dufont. Dufont is a bandit leader found at Raudbathar who seduced Mori to rob the Shattershield clan. As an optional objective, the player can also kill Nilsine Shattershield, but it seems the entire subplot involving Nilsine was only added when the pit was scrapped, as the quest originally centered around it. Here's how Mori's line for killing both Nilsine and Elaine appears in the final game.
Thank you. That bastard got exactly what he deserved. And I heard about Nilsine. You have more than fulfilled your part of the bargain. Please, take this, as payment and a symbol of my affection.
However, it was originally much different, as an early version of the line reads, "And please, take this," as sort of, I don't know, a thank you for killing Elaine in the pit, and as a reminder of me. The line for killing Elaine, but not Nilsine, plays out like this in retail.
That bastard got exactly what he deserved. But last I heard, Nilsine is still alive. So I guess you decided not to kill her as well. I have to admit, I'm disappointed.
The original line also mentions the pit though, but the agreement was to kill Elaine in the pit. I wanted him disgraced. I wanted all of Windhelm to know him for a failure. This reveals that Nilsine seemingly wasn't even a part of the original quest, as the optional objective revolved around killing Elaine in a pit fight. Further, it implies that Elaine wasn't a bandit, but rather an accomplished gladiator. Developer notes and an unused quest called Dark Brotherhood Get Arrested suggest the player needed to get into a fight and thrown in jail so the match could be set up. One of Huki's greetings is linked to a variable called Dark Brotherhood Fight Went Awry, implying that something could have gone wrong during the fight where you were trying to get arrested, but whatever it is isn't defined.
I even brewed a special poison, lotus extract. Maybe you could use it?
During the quest, the player is given a powerful poison called Lotus Extract to aid them in killing Elaine. Notably, Lotus Extract is still found in a barrel in the Bloodworks, and it seems this would have been smuggled down here to aid the player in Mori's revenge, though it's unknown why she wanted him to die in this iteration of the quest. During some quest stages, a new dialogue option becomes available for Huki. I want to fight Elaine Dufont.
Well, aren't you in luck? He's the next piece of gutter scum on the docket. Between you and me, I hope you cleave his arrogant head open.
This dialogue option references the Lotus Extract as well. Elaine would have been found in a jail cell as there's a marker here named after him. He's a part of the Windhelm City faction, revealing he was a regular citizen at one point, who likely would have been seen throughout Windhelm prior to being arrested at the start of Morning Never Comes. The player would have to choose between easily killing him while he was trapped in jail, or going toe-to-toe in the pit in a more challenging battle. Further, his class is still prisoner, and the dialogue he uses in the final game is called Pit Taunt.
Well, you must have all those annoying gods on your side to have made it this far, whoever you are. Even I have to admit that's pretty impressive. You had your chance to talk.
Bizarrely, none of his lines were re-recorded, and in retrospect it's obvious he's making a speech before you fought him in the pit, even going as far as calling the player Mori's champion.
Moiri? Moiri? So what, you're the cow's champion? Now that is rich. Well then, champion, let's get this over with.
And the next line he addresses you as an opponent rather than an assassin.
Ha! My opponent is so paralyzed with terror. No words will come. Let's be done with it then.
In his final line, he claims to be a king on his throne, suggesting he was the champion of the arena.
A joke? Elaine Dufont, a joke? I am a king on my throne, and you, my friend, you will die slowly and painfully.
Whether or not he was actually a champion, or if there would have been other champions, is a mystery though. He would have used an iron sword in the fight, implying that his unique weapon Aegis Bane was only added afterwards. While they reworked some elements, Elaine was essentially left unaltered apart from being moved to Raudbathar. For example, he has behavior that should make him sit, engage in conversation, eat, use furniture, and sleep, but he doesn't actually do any of these because his AI package is still linked to the Bloodworks. It's almost like Skyrim was a little rushed or something.
You won! Congratulations! Here are your winnings, my friend. 100 gold pieces. Come back and bet on the matches as often as you like.
Like its predecessor, you also would have had the option to bet on fights through an unused Nord named Benkum. Interestingly, the Dragonborn add-on also features a Nord NPC of the same name. The Cut Benkum is set up to wear scaled armor and still has several unused greetings.
Hello, hello, hello. Interested in fighting in the pit? The rules are strict, but if I don't see it, it didn't happen. Know what I mean? It's very important to Hookie that all the battles are fair. What's more important to me is that my pay is fair. Prove your valor in the pit. If you haven't got any valor, prove your pocketbook.
He's marked as an employee to Huki and as a friend to Agernor Once Honored. The latter is a beggar who appears in the final game, and this relationship suggests that he might have attended arena matches as a spectator. There's an unused AI package called Benkum is Always in the Bloodworks, suggesting he only would have appeared inside the Bloodworks cell. However, the package is strangely linked to a marker outside of bounds of Windhelm, right where the exterior of the pit was once found. This makes more sense and would have made him like his counterpart in Oblivion, who was also found outside the spectator's entrance. You wouldn't have been able to enter the spectator's entrance unless you made a bet, as there's an unused message that states, "You cannot enter the pit without making a wager." There are several unused messages related to small, medium, and large bets, which were 100, 500, and 1,000 gold respectively. If you chose correctly, you'd win double your bet, and would lose everything if you were wrong. After betting, you could choose from the option the field or another unknown option, implying there were different types of matches you could wager on. Afterwards, you'd need to choose what type of enemy was fought, ranging from tough animals, easy animals, people, or exotic. One of these options has an amusing note that says, "Next wager is people, Soylent Green."
Silent Green is people!
Student Green is made of people.
It seems these options would have been pulled from Leveled List, but these were either never made or deleted. Due to this, it's unknown what creatures would have been used while betting, but there likely would have been some overlap between the enemies you fought in the arena questline. It's unknown who would have been fighting these enemies, but I suspect it would have been chosen from a list of generic gladiators. There's an invisible wall surrounding the pit, likely placed here to stop the player from interfering with matches while betting. Interestingly, a note suggests these fights wouldn't always be to the death, mentioning that some matches would feature blunted weapons. This could have been a fun feature if it was implemented well, but it sadly wasn't meant to be. Finally, there's a series of cut conversations that would have taken place between Huki and the other members of the arena. These likely would have occurred in the Bloodworks and outside the pit's entrance in Windhelm. The lines are left over in the game files, but were either never set up in-game or were deleted. As a result, it's impossible to know the exact order these lines would have been used, but here's how they might have played out.
Huki, I'm not sure I have the spirit to fight in the pit for much longer.
Brond, what kind of talk is that? Either the pit is in your blood, or your blood will be in the pit. Do you hear me?
At least it would be a challenge.
You ready for tomorrow's fight, my large strapping meat of a man?
I'm always ready, Huki, but I am not yours.
You let me know if you ever change your mind on that.
The pit is just boring these days. There's a real war on. Real fighting.
Would you rather be out there getting your head smashed by one of those dragons?
I just miss seeing the world.
I've seen it all. There's nothing to see. Now get your rear back in there and keep training.
I will for now. But you don't control me. Nobody does. And someday, I'll move on.
Liesel, what would you say to fighting a dragon? I've got word from a friend in Dawnstar that he could procure one for me.
Are you sure it's a real dragon?
Of course. I wouldn't lie to you now, would I?
Then bring it on.
I need you to put out word that there will be a Liesel fight later this week.
Splendid, matron. Who will be her opponent?
I haven't decided yet. Maybe a pack of wolves. Or some of those Imperial thickheads we have stewing in the dungeon.
Excellent, my lady. Most excellent. Madam Pit Matron, my lady.
Don't get cute with me, Benkam. Just Pit Matron will do.
The outer restraint has come unhinged.
So why bother me? Fix it.
Yes, my most lovely sovereign and highborn lady.
See that your inspections are watertight, or it'll be you in there fighting the bears next.
Yes, ma'am.
Benkam, there have been complaints about one of the fighters having unauthorized armor in the ring.
Well, that would be against the rules now, wouldn't it? It would be a horrible shame.
Don't toy with me, you little ice brain. It's your job to enforce the rules.
Yes, indeed. That's why I make such princely wages.
The pit would have been an intriguing consequence to crime that would have not only made Windhelm into a more interesting settlement, but would have improved the Dark Brotherhood's questline as well. Even more so, it would have been a touching homage to Oblivion, but ultimately, all of this was left on the cutting room floor. The Combat Zone is a theater-turned-arena, run by a band of villainous raiders who fight to the death in cage matches. In-game, it acts as little more than a mere mini-dungeon that results in the player gaining a companion. However, it was originally intended to be a quest-filled location where the player could battle opponents, wager on fights, and buy equipment. This is the Combat Zone's cut content. When first arriving at the Combat Zone, the raiders were originally non-hostile, and there's still evidence of this in-game, like the sign that mentions no fighting outside the cage. There's a sign placed inside of a building outside the Combat Zone that says, Bar, Safe Haven, and Arena. This is the only time it's used, and it seems it was moved out of bounds once the raiders were made into murder hobos. There's another sign that says, All are welcome, that's used in several locations like Goodneighbor. But it was originally made for the Combat Zone and was repurposed when the Arena questline was axed. There's also a completely unused sign that says Neutral Zone.
Name's Rufus. I do repairs around here. Keep the robots running, sell a bit of scrap, that sort of thing.
In the final game, Rufus Rubbins is a resident of Goodneighbor, but he was only moved here after the Combat Zone quest was cut. He was originally named Stanley Rubens, and Tommy still mentions him in his dialogue.
Now head over to the bar, and Stanley will pour you a glass of something special.
In-game, he gives the player a quest to recover a robot called Drinking Buddy, but this quest made way more sense in the Combat Zone, as he was originally the Fight Club's bartender, opposed to being a random handyman in Goodneighbor. There's a cut bar faction revealing he would have sold the player some items, likely booze, and one of the signs outside the arena still mentions they sell spirits. There's two unused markers placed near the souvenir sign that show he would have had a conversation with Tommy. But these lines are sadly missing, and it seems all of his dialogue was re-recorded when he was cut from the area. A raider named Patches would have appeared here as well, and he would have run a shop somewhere in the arena that sold various weapons, mines, food, and armor. His vendor chest is still placed near the souvenir bar area, not far from where the conversation between Stanley and Tommy took place. There's an unused character named Junkyard, but it's unknown if he was someone you fought, a fellow combatant you could talk to, or something else entirely. There's also a single reference to a character named Tweedle, linked to some code called Combat Zone Intro, which would have warped this mysterious NPC to the door as you entered the arena for the first time, but every other trace of the character was deleted. Another endgame sign mentions doctoring, but there's no trace of any doctor here left over. There's an unused cell called Combat Zone 02 intended to be the location's basement, and the doors on either side of the stage would have led down to it. It's possible the basement would have been its own separate cell, but considering that it snaps perfectly into the main area, I suspect they would have been merged together eventually. The doors on stage left and stage right would descend down a staircase and connect to an area called the Trap Room, a hallway that contains furniture, lockers, and other props. There's also 2 dressing rooms for the fighters to get ready, and perhaps you could have talked to the other fighters down here as they prepared for fights or slept. There's a sign used in the ruins of Quincy that was originally made for the combat zone, and it was meant to show that the rooms in the basement could be rented. Tommy and the players still have unused lines regarding this.
If you need a place to stay, you can crash with the other fighters backstage, though something tells me you won't be calling this place home.
You charge rent for that?
Not if you keep fighting. You can crash downstairs. Free of charge.
An unused AI package would have made a raider attack a linked reference using a melee weapon, and they were probably meant to hit a training dummy. Kate still has an AI package that makes her perform various tasks here, and while she technically uses it, the location is still inaccessible without console commands. Despite being cut, Kate still mentions her room in the basement in dialogue.
Huh. This still looks cleaner than me place back at the combat zone.
Most notably, there are 2 elevators that would have transported the player and their opponent up into the arena, and there's still 2 spots inside the cage marking where you would have been brought up to. If you approached the lifts while a companion was in your party, they'd play a line about the area. Most of the dev notes are pretty mundane, like that Piper would have written in her notebook, but X688's line has a funny note that states, "Disdain for the peasants."
I always figured the life of a cage fighter would be more glamorous than this.
I used to love entering the ring and hearing everyone cheer. Now I'm realizing I was just a caged animal put on display for their amusement.
Well, Tommy tried to get me to fight in the ring once. Almost took him up on it, too. I guess I missed my chance.
Ridiculous. These aren't animals. These are human beings.
Never been down here. Hate to say it, but a story about the inner workings of the combat zone would really move some papers.
The underbelly of the combat zone. Not sure it gets seedier than this.
The little people just eat this up.
The really sad thing is that people volunteer for this.
Quite the theatrical setup back here. I can only imagine the elaborate plays that were performed here.
On your first visit, Tommy would welcome you as you walked in and a spotlight would be focused onto you.
Hello, what's this? We have some new blood, folks. Come on down, new blood. Let's get a good look at ya. And it looks like she wants to fight. What do you say? Shall we put her in the cage?
The raiders around the cage would talk to you as you pass by them, and while some of these lines can play, they become hostile so quickly that it's unlikely you'll ever hear them.
Power armor, huh? Someone might think you're looking for trouble walking around like that. Not while the fight's going. Looks like you're wanted up front. That a vault suit? What kind of gang wears vault suits? You from up north or something? Bunch of weirdos up there.
They let you in, huh? What gang you with again? Sounds like Tommy's calling you. Where'd you nab the power armor? You one of the Fords or something? Better get up there. A vault suit? Hate to see the poor bastard you took that from.
Tommy would force greet you, and then you could comment on the arena or ask about it, resulting in him asking you to fight in the cage.
Welcome to my humble establishment.
From here you could ask more about the arena, agree to fight, or turn him down. If you turned him down, he would then threaten you and give you one last chance to agree.
You're out of your mind.
She's scared.
The natives get restless when they don't get the fight they're promised. In case I'm not being clear, it's either fight in the cage or face the collective wrath of my disappointed patrons.
The last line has a note that states, as if being pleasant, but the threat is very real.
You haven't given me much choice. All right. I'll do it.
I knew we'd convince you.
Sure, why not? It's not like I have anything better to do.
If you refused again, he'd play these lines as the raiders attacked you.
Really? You're giving me an ultimatum?
Yep. Afraid so.
You deaf? I said no, asshole.
Well, now you're just being rude. Rule number 1 is temporarily lifted. Get 'em, boys!
At 2 points during this conversation, some companions would interject, but these lines appear to be missing. Going back a bit, here's the lines for the player agreeing or asking more about the arena.
Nice place you got here.
A nice guy, huh? Don't find too many of those around here.
This place is a dump.
Hear that? She's too good for us.
I'm just passing through.
Most of the regulars were just passing through once too. Weren't you, boys?
So this is some kind of arena?
Looks like we got a regular Einstein here. Now, before we get too attached, how about you jump into that cage and show us what you're made of?
All right, I'll do it.
I like your moxie.
What's in it for me?
You're gonna fit in nicely. I pay you a little something for each fight. The harder the fight, the bigger the pay. But, like I said, let's see how well you do against my little bird there before we sign any contracts.
Who's that I'll be fighting?
Kate. She's one of the best. She won't kill you if I ask her nicely. Isn't that right, Kate?
I wouldn't be too sure of that.
Never mind her. She'll do as she's told. So how about it? The crowd will love you for it, won't ya? There's a trapdoor under the stage. Head down the stairs to my right and up the lift. No guns. No power armor.
Once you agreed, you'd need to pick up a weapon from a cut NPC named Handler. Little is known about the character, but it's possible he would have given the player weapons in future bouts to level the playing field and stop you from using overpowered weapons. You'd now go down the stairs to the basement and ride the elevator into the cage. If you didn't do it quickly enough, Tommy would play dialogue chastising you.
We'll give the new girl a few moments to figure out where the stage door is. A glorious fight is just moments away. I think she might have gotten lost. Get a drink at the bar while you wait. Okay, come on already. It's not hard. Down the stairs and up the lift. New blood. Get on the stage now or you'll soon regret it. Not so bright, our newcomer, eh, boys?
As you reach the elevator, this conversation would play out between Tommy and Kate.
We have our fighter, ladies and gentlemen. Go easy on him, all right? No finishing flourishes, capiche?
Yeah. Quit showing off and get her up here already.
When you entered, the cage door would fittingly be locked, forcing you to win your fight before you could exit. Tommy would introduce both of you with dramatic flourishes, while the spotlight turned on and pointed to each combatant.
Ladies and gentlemen, and the rest of you ugly lot, for your amusement only, I present to you Kate and the New Blood.
Right before the fight started, Tommy would move away from the mic and talk to both of you.
Listen, you two, here's the deal. I want blood, but no one dies. I just want to size up the new guy, all right?
At this point, the crowd would cheer for 1 second.
On the count of 3. You all know how this goes. 1, 2, 3, fight!
A note for those lines mentions the crowd would have counted down alongside him, but these lines are also missing.
What's this? The New Blood bested our fair Kate!
After winning, Kate would ask you to kill her, and the note for the next line reads, exhausted, depressed, angry to player who bested you in a cage match fight. Asking him to kill you, you assume he won't, but half desire him to.
Quit standing there and finish it already. The hell are you waiting for?
I don't want to get shredded by those miniguns.
Everyone for themselves, eh? Fine.
The first player response mentions miniguns, but notably there are none here in game. However, there is an unused MK1 machine gun turret that apparently would have been placed multiple times throughout the arena.
You're not worth my time.
You're all heart.
Tommy said no killing.
It's always about Tommy and what he wants.
What's the matter with you?
Everything's the matter with me. Just forget it.
All right, fight's over. You two can come out now. Through the gate in the cage.
All right. Let's go, hero.
In what must be a recording studio mix-up, some of Kate's lines from this scene were recorded by multiple different voice actors who portray generic raiders.
Everyone for themselves, huh? Fine. You're all heart.
It's always about Tommy and what he wants. Everything's the matter with me. Just forget it.
After talking to Kate, Tommy would play some more dialogue if you didn't quickly exit the cage. This dialogue has a note that states, "Looking at combatants. A little worried the player might kill your favorite fighter that you look after like a daughter."
All right, fight's over. You two can come out now. You get your brain rattled, fight's done. Come on out. Not too bright on new blood, huh?
During the conversation, you'd get a reward, and you'd have a speech check option to get additional caps.
Nice work. Get over here. You too, Bird.
I told you to quit calling me that.
So, new blood, what'd you think of that?
It was a good fight. She's not a bad fighter.
That's cute. You and I both know I'm just tired as hell from me last few fights.
Too easy. You said she's one of your best?
Too easy, eh? How about we have a little rematch when I'm not all worn out from fighting the idiots that stumbled into the arena before you?
The fight's a fight. You either win or lose. This time I won.
Don't let our little tussle get to that, big head. I was tired from fighting all the other idiots who stumbled into the arena before you.
You tell me. Did we put on a good show?
Yeah, Tommy. Did we do it for you? I know you get off on it.
I would have preferred you putting up more of a fight. You lost that all on your own. You're strung out and getting sloppy. You need to curb the chems, darling. You didn't lose to him, you lost to that jet pipe. It's making you sloppy. You need to curb the chems, darling.
I'm not your darling.
Don't mind her. She hates losing. But you weren't half bad in there. You want to make this a regular thing?
Sure, I could do that. It was fun.
No one fights in there for fun.
Afraid this was a one-time thing.
One time, huh? I bet you'll change your mind.
Not unless you're gonna pay me.
I knew I'd like you.
Depends. What's in it for me?
You mean beyond the adoring fans? Here, take this. There's more where that came from. If you keep fighting. And living, of course.
Thank you.
No, thank you, ma'am.
You're a bit stingy with the caps. Especially since I just risked my life for the amusement of your patrons.
What can I say? Their amusement comes cheap. Same as their tastes in liquor.
This the standard pay?
Let's call it a first-time trial run commission and leave it at that.
Not enough. Surely you can do better than that.
I must be sick. I'm feeling a tad generous today. Yeah, we'll call this a one-time signing bonus. Nice try. You'll get more the more you do this. If you need a place to stay, you can crash with the other fighters backstage, though something tells me you won't be calling this place home.
Thanks. I might take you up on that from time to time, but it won't be a permanent arrangement, I'm afraid. You kidding? There's no way I'd call this place home. You're right about that. I might crash from time to time, but it won't be a permanent arrangement.
Hear that, Tommy? Not everyone finds your humble establishment the dog's bollocks.
Lost some of the charm, has it?
Whatever.
Then he'd ask you to take Kate on as a companion.
Perhaps you could do me a solid. Our dear Kate here needs a change of scenery. If you take her with you when you go on whatever adventures it is you go on out there, I'd appreciate it.
Now wait a second.
What do you say? Would you help an old man by keeping an eye on his pet?
Damn it, Tommy. I'm no man's pet.
Doesn't sound like she wants to.
Sounds like it doesn't matter what I want.
You're on your own with that. I don't need the trouble.
Oh, I'm no trouble at all.
Only if she wants to come.
Tommy, you backstabbing.
What's in it for me?
What's in it for you? What's in it for me? You know what? Fine. I'm done. I give Tommy a week before he starts missing my sweet arse. When are we leaving, Hotshot?
I'll find you on my way out.
Great. I'll be in the toilet fixing me makeup.
Whatever you think is happening, isn't.
Look, one way or another, I'm leaving this place. If you want me watching your back, fine. If not, it's your funeral.
I'm not exactly sure what's going on here.
Tommy thinks he can hand me over to you, but no one gets to do that. I say where I go and who I go with. Let me spell it out for you. One way or another, I'm leaving this place. If you want me watching your back, fine. If not, it's your funeral.
You sure you want this?
I know one thing for sure. I'm done with Tommy and his bullshit. Let's get out of here.
Afterwards, he'd threaten you, and the last line states, "A deadly serious threat. You have done that to people before."
Listen, friend, if you did this for me, you'd be doing me a favor. But let me make this perfectly clear to you. Should any harm come to her, I'll gut you from testicles to eyeballs. Do you understand me?
Perfectly.
Excellent!
I don't take kindly to threats.
I don't give threats. That was a promise.
Message received.
Good.
Why so hostile?
Not hostile, just serious. I trust we understand each other, yes? Now head over to the bar and Stanley will pour you a glass of something special.
Finally, you could agree to get a drink or ask him about his relationship with Kate, but all options would lead to him hyping up the next fight and the conversation ending.
You bet. Fine. I could use a stiff drink after all that. So, what's the deal with you two anyway?
Let's just say I have a soft spot for that particular girl and leave it at that. Now, unless you have any other burning questions, why don't you go grab that drink? 10 minutes till the next fight. Place your bets now!
Kate has an AI package that would now be triggered, causing her to smoke after the fight. After winning that fight, the player could return to the arena and compete in additional cage fights. These fights would have been to the death, unlike your bout against Kate, and likely would have prohibited both power armor and ranged weapons. Similar to Skyrim's Cut Arena, you would have advanced in rank after winning enough matches, which would have resulted in progressively more difficult fights and higher rewards. There's a faction that tracks how much to pay you for a win, ranging from 100 to 300 caps per fight. The names of the ranks aren't defined, but the max rank was 5. Dialogue often refers to you as New Blood, and this might have been the rank 1 title. Deacon has a line that would play during the quest Road to Freedom, but it's unknown if this was meant for when the player reached the final rank or simply for defeating Kate.
This here is the champion of the combat zone. That's a hell of a feat.
There's still an unused NPC named Combatant that you would have fought, and he strangely uses Nick Valentine's race. More difficult opponents were meant to be added to the Combatant faction, but the area was gutted before they were implemented. There's another unused cell called Combat Zone Holding Cell, which likely would have been used to contain these opponents and teleport them into the arena before starting a fight. After accepting a fight, the player would be given 2 minutes to reach the elevator before the objective would be failed and this line would be played.
Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you, we have a no-show.
If you made it to the cage before the timer expired, you'd be introduced before the fight started, and there would also be some post-fight dialogue.
Think you can handle yourself in the cage?
Sign me up for the next fight.
Good. Let's do it now, then. The usual prize, upon winning, of course.
I'll do it.
Head downstairs to the lift. I'll warm up the crowd.
Not interested.
Scared, huh? Well, your secret's safe with me!
Not today.
You wouldn't have lasted long anyway. Well, if you change your mind, let me know.
Maybe, if it pays.
Oh, it most definitely pays. If you win, that is. You manning up or wussing out?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
A bit blasé about the whole life and death thing, aren't you? Well, so long as you put on a good show, what the hell do I care? The lift into the cage is in the basement. I see you can barely contain the excitement. Well, to the lift with you. And you better give me a good show.
The cage?
That big metal thing on the stage, where the meatheads cut each other for the amusement of the locals. You think you got what it takes?
What's the prize?
The prize will go up in size as you go up in rank. An unknown like you, 100 caps, and a warm, fuzzy feeling. The crowd is starting to take notice, which is good for business. I'll put you up against tougher fighters. Stay alive and earn yourself 200 caps. Die, and earn the other guy the same. A regular up-and-comer you are. Folks like to bet more on your matches. That's good for me. And good for you. 300 caps. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, direct your attention to center stage. Bets are now closed. We'll let the beasts size each other up for a moment. One staring into the eyes of death, the other into glory. But which is which? Let us find out. In a few short moments, for your pleasure and short attention spans, two fearless fighters will beat each other to bloody pulps. Feeling lucky? Think you can size up the fight? Bets are open. Step on over. Make a wager. Come on up and make a wager. Last call for wagers. Your attention, please. Wagers are now closed. But fear not. There's always another fight just around the corner. And may I remind you, the only blood allowed in the combat zone is in the ring. Now, without further ado, let the fighting begin! What a fight! Some are richer, some are poorer. All were entertained, you savages. Winners, collect your winnings. Losers, better luck next time.
You could also wager on matches between two NPCs and could bet up to 200 caps per match, winning double your bet on a correct choice. After betting, your caps would have been transferred to a vendor chest that's still found beneath the floor of the arena.
Care to place a wager?
That's why I'm here.
How are you feeling about the left fighter?
He's the one. She's the one.
Smart woman. What'll you bet? Max bid is 200 caps.
Not interested.
No need to fear. Your caps are safe with me. You look like a smart one. You think you can pick the winner?
I'll go with the other one.
Aha! A fine choice. What'll you bet? Max bid is 200 caps.
Maybe.
I'll put you down for the left fighter then. How's that sound?
It doesn't matter. You pick.
I'll put you down for the left fighter.
What's the payout?
Bet on the winner, double your money. Bet on the loser, double my money. What do you say?
What do you think?
Oh, no. Wouldn't be fair to the others if I were to tell you my favorite. Though I wonder how you'd size up the left fighter.
There's a staggering number of cut lines for the Raider audience who would have watched the fights. It's rare that I won't play unique cut lines, but so many of them are only slight variations of one another. The first set of lines are approval dialogue, and a note in the creation kit reads, "Shouting approval. Your fighter is winning, blood spurt, etc."
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on!
Yeah!
No!
Oh! Nice!
Oh! Yeah!
Yeah, get there!
Ho 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 ho!
Ho!
Yeah! Bow, 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 bow.
How you like them apples?
That's what I'm talking about. Get ready to pay up, suckers. Keep it up. More blood. You got it. Go for the eyes.
The disapproval lines have their own note. Hearty booing. Guy you bet on is losing, announcer said something you don't like, etc.
Die already! Murder her! Chop her into pieces! Bleed her! No! Oh, come on! Boo! You're worthless!
No!
Weak! You gotta be kidding me! Fight harder! I got money riding on you! You're doing nothing but bleeding! You call that a fight? I hope you die! Get it together! If he doesn't kill you, I will!
While the laughter lines note reads, hearty laughter, funny joke, that guy got his arm chopped off, etc.
Ooh!
There's also missing lines for when a player had a limb crippled or died. There's also empty topics for arena lines which likely would have been played by your opponents, and lines that would have played after the completion of a fight, but they were either deleted or never recorded. There's a mysterious cut X marker on the second floor near some bedrolls that never get used. There's 2 more unused markers of an unknown purpose at the entrance, and several around the cage, but these are likely related to the audience. Kate has a cut bandolier that's essentially complete apart from missing a world model. It's even still mentioned and shown in the official guide, teasing that it would have given you +1 strength and +2 damage resistance. Finally, there's a script using the area prefix that had its contents deleted named Power Supply, perhaps implying the player could fix or disable the combat zone's power, but this is simply speculation. Bethesda would go on to add an arena in the Nuka World DLC, but it doesn't feature betting on fights, ranks, or much of what would have made the combat zone special. Instead, we ended up with a forgettable dungeon that likely only avoided the chopping block entirely because of a companion, while the most intriguing aspects of it were ultimately left on the cutting room floor.